Iran-Iraq War, the brutal 8-year conflict that shaped the Middle East. It lasted for 8 bloody years. It killed over 1 million people, and yet most of the world barely remembers it. This is the story of the Iran-Iraq War, one of the deadliest and most misunderstood conflicts of the 20th century. Background: how it all started. The Iran-Iraq War began on September 22, 1980, when Iraq, led by President Saddam Hussein, launched a massive invasion of neighboring Iran. But this war didn't start overnight. It was fueled by a toxic mix of politics, religion, and power struggles that had been boiling for decades. Let's rewind a bit. In 1979, Iran had just undergone a major revolution. The Shah of Iran, who had been backed by the United States, was overthrown. He was replaced by Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, a radical Islamic cleric who turned Iran into a theocratic Islamic republic. This terrified Saddam Hussein. Iraq was a secular, Sunni-led dictatorship, while Iran had become a Shia Islamic state that actively promoted Islamic revolution across the Middle East. Saddam feared that Iran would inspire Iraq's Shia majority to rise up against him. But there was more. Saddam also wanted control over the Shatt al-Arab waterway, a vital river that connects the Persian Gulf to Iraq. It had long been disputed between the two countries, and Saddam saw Iran's internal chaos as a golden opportunity to strike. The invasion and early war, 1980-1982. On September 22, 1980, Iraq launched airstrikes on Iranian air bases and sent troops across the border. Saddam thought Iran would collapse quickly. He was wrong. Although Iran was disorganized after the revolution, its people united in a patriotic and religious response. Millions volunteered to fight, including children as young as 12. The war quickly turned brutal. Saddam's army captured parts of Iranian territory, including the oil-rich city of Khorramshahr, but Iran didn't back down. In 1982, they launched a massive counteroffensive and pushed Iraq out of Iranian land. At this point, the war could have ended. But Iran had a new goal now: to topple Saddam Hussein and spread its revolution. And so the war dragged on, a war of attrition. 1982-1988. For the next 6 years, the Iran-Iraq War became a horrific stalemate. Trench warfare, human wave attacks, and endless artillery barrages became the norm. It looked like a modern version of World War I. Iran sent thousands of poorly armed volunteers, known as the Basij, to clear minefields with their bodies. Iraq responded with chemical weapons, mustard gas, and nerve agents that killed or maimed tens of thousands of Iranians. Yes, Saddam Hussein used chemical weapons in clear violation of international law. Iraq was backed by many countries, including the United States, Soviet Union, France, and Gulf Arab states like Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. Iran, meanwhile, was isolated and under heavy sanctions. Still, it refused to surrender. The tanker war and attacks on civilians. By the mid-1980s, both sides began attacking oil tankers in the Persian Gulf to hurt each other's economies. This was known as the Tanker War, and it even drew the United States into the conflict. The war also spilled into cities. Iraq bombed Iranian population centers in what became known as the War of the Cities. Iran responded with its own missile attacks. No one was safe. Civilians, children, and the elderly all became victims. The end of the war, 1988. By 1988, both countries were exhausted. Iran had suffered huge casualties and economic collapse. Iraq, too, was deeply in debt and facing rising internal resistance. Finally, on July 20, 1988, Iran accepted UN Resolution 598, calling for a ceasefire. The war officially ended in August 1988 with no real winner. The borders remained almost exactly the same, But both nations were shattered. Aftermath and legacy. Over 1 million people died, mostly Iranians. Iraq was left deep in debt, especially to Kuwait. This debt would later push Saddam to invade Kuwait in 1990, leading to the Gulf War. Iran emerged more united and deeply entrenched in anti-Western ideology. The war also solidified the rise of the Revolutionary Guard in Iran, now one of the most powerful forces in the country. The world largely ignored the atrocities of this war, especially the use of chemical weapons because of Cold War politics. But for the people of Iran and Iraq, the war left deep scars that still affect their societies today. The Iran-Iraq War wasn't just a border conflict. It was a devastating clash of ideologies, egos, and empires. It changed the balance of power in the Middle East, and its echoes can still be felt in every corner of the region. For 8 years, two nations bled in silence, and the world simply looked the other way.